Hey there, I'm Scott. Welcome back to my home and my kitchen. Today we're working on an email I received recently from a lady named Christine in St. Louis. She'd recently taken a trip to New Orleans and fallen in love with Cajun Creole cuisine. And she asked me to prepare one of my favorite dishes, which is crawfish etouffee. Etouffee in French means to stew, braise, or smother. It's typically a Creole dish, which means it's more city food, but you can find etouffees all over Louisiana. And although we're using crawfish in today's recipe, you can substitute the crawfish with shrimp or sausage or chicken or really whatever your imagination leads you to. So let me get started with the ingredients. First, you'll need 2 pounds of crawfish tail meat. As I've mentioned before in other videos, you can find this usually in town at a nice butcher shop or a fish market. There's also great online resources for really great Louisiana crawfish. You'll need a 1/4 pound of butter, or 1 stick of butter. In this bowl I have basically the trinity, which is going to be 1 cup of finely chopped onion, 1/2 cup of finely chopped celery, 1/2 cup of finely chopped green bell pepper, and 1/2 cup of finely chopped red bell pepper. It's all delicious. And if you don't have red bell pepper, you substitute with the green bell pepper or yellow. I just like the color of the red, little bits of red in the dish. In this bowl I have 2 bay leaves, 1/2 cup of chopped tomatoes. You just cut the top off the tomatoes, squeeze the juice and the seeds out of it, and coarsely chop it. 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, depending on your taste. You're also going to need 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, a cup of flour, an ounce of sherry, 1 cup of sliced green onions or spring onions, 1/2 cup of finely chopped parsley, and approximately 8 cups of stock. Seafood stock or crawfish stock would be excellent. If you don't have that, which most people don't, you can take 4 cups of chicken stock and mix that with 4 cups of water. You don't want a lot, a really strong chicken flavor, but you do want some added flavor in the dish. And we're going to season that to taste with salt, pepper, cayenne pepper, and Tabasco right at the end. So what I've done is I've heated up my pan over a medium heat. I'm going to add our butter to start, get that right in there, and let that melt. And as soon as it melts, we'll start adding the ingredients. While we wait for this butter to melt, I wanted to answer one question that I get occasionally on my email, and that's about putting all of the ingredients together before we start. People ask, why do you do that? It seems like it's just a lot of work and a lot of dirty dishes. But anyone who works professionally in a kitchen or has gone to culinary school is very familiar with the term mise en place. And that means to get everything together and ready for the recipe. And it makes really good sense. You have everything chopped and ready, your knives are cleaned and put away. So as you start to assemble a particular recipe, everything's ready to go. So that's why. It really is a helpful tip. Okay, so in the pan we have all of our butter melted very nicely. We don't want this butter to brown at all. So immediately, once we get it to a liquid state, we're going to add all of our trinity right in there, and it smells, the flavors of this are just delicious, and the smell is incredible as it comes together. And to the trinity, we're going to add our bay leaf, our tomato, and our garlic. And if you like a lot of garlic in your dish, by all means add it. I'm going to increase the temperature just to a medium-high and let this saute for about 5 minutes. It actually ended up taking about 7 minutes or so for my vegetables to get as wilted as I wanted them. Because you don't want a lot of bite to them, you want them sort of broken down already before you continue the recipe at this point. So what I'm going to do is take my 1 cup of flour, and that goes all into the pot. We're going to combine this very well, stirring constantly. We're creating here what we call a white roux, which is the blend of butter and the flour. We don't want a lot of color on it as we do in a lot of Creole dishes. We just want everything nicely combined. We want to cook it slightly to get rid of that raw flour flavor before we continue with the recipe. So I'm going to stir this. It's going to take me just, probably no time whatsoever. And it's already coming together quite nicely. Everything's going to kind of seize up initially when you put that flour in, and that is just fine. So we've been cooking for just about 45 seconds, minute maybe. Everything's nicely just sort of cooked through slightly. I'm going to add our 2 pounds of crawfish meat. And Stir that in slightly. And at this point, we also want to add our 2 tablespoons of the tomato paste. Stir this constantly to make sure everything gets combined and to make sure that nothing scorches to the bottom of your pot. And I'm working over about a medium-high heat. So I've been stirring this for about 5 minutes. We just want to get everything kind of started on the cooking process. Another thing I wanted to let you know, this serves about 8, maybe 12 people depending on the portion size, 6 really hungry people, or 4 for dinner and then plenty of leftovers. And as I said earlier, shrimp substitutes very nicely in this dish if you can't find or don't enjoy the flavor of crawfish. So I wanted to now slowly start to add our stock, about a cup at a time probably. Stir after each addition. And we're looking for a very nice sauce-like consistency. I added just about 5 cups of the 8 cups of stock that we started with. And the consistency is very nice. I wish we were actually here, but it's a nice sauce-like consistency in the pan. And what I'm going to do is keep the rest of the stock handy. We want to keep the consistency as is, so as it boils and cooks, we're going to add a little bit more as we need it. We might not use all of the stock. Alright, so what I'm going to do is turn the heat up just a little bit over a medium-high. Let this come to a boil, and as soon as it comes to a boil, reduce it to a simmer. I'm going to let it cook. Our etouffee just came to a boil, which is perfect. I'm going to grab just a little pinch of salt, put that in. We're going to reduce the temperature. We're going to simmer this. To start with, until the boil goes away, stir it pretty constantly. Once you get it down to a simmer, stir occasionally. That's just to ensure that nothing's going to stick to the bottom. And also add stock as needed. If it starts to get too thick or pasty, add a little bit of stock, a cup at a time, and you'll be just fine. It's been just about 30 minutes simmering, and it's looking really good. The consistency that we want to finish this at is going to be the consistency of a really thick clam chowder or cream of potato soup, to give you some sort of idea of what the consistency is. So at this point, I want to test it for salt and pepper. It needs just a little bit of salt, about a quarter or so of black pepper, quarter teaspoon of ground black pepper, and about a quarter teaspoon of cayenne pepper. That's going to add a nice amount of spice to it. If you want it a little spicier, add a little more cayenne pepper to it. But when you serve this, you're going to serve it with Tabasco sauce on the side for people to spice it up. So keep it moderately spicy when it comes to the heat. I'm going to stir all that in. Now we're going to add our 1 ounce of the sherry, the ½ cup of the chopped up parsley, and the 1 cup of the green onions. And we don't want to cook it too much after this, so I'm going to leave it on about a medium heat, stir all this in, and let it cook for about 5 minutes. And as most of these Cajun Creole recipes are, they're much better if they're allowed to cook, then cool and reheat right before serving. It gives time for the flavors to sort of develop. So I'm going to give this a nice stir, let it cook for about 5 minutes, then we'll be back to plate it. So those final ingredients have cooked about 5 minutes, and this is smelling really good. So I cooked some rice while the rest of this was cooking. I'm going to put a little scoop of that in there and top that off with some of this delicious crawfish etouffee. It looks and smells so good, and I think that you'll really enjoy it. So I just have to give this a taste. It absolutely smells delicious. It's all the flavors of New Orleans. The crawfish is delicious. Try it, and you'll understand why crawfish etouffee is one of the classic dishes of New Orleans. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and please feel free to email me, as Christine did, at scottindenver@msn.com to make a comment on this particular episode or to ask me to prepare a recipe for you. I'll be happy to. All right, have a good day. Bye.